I sat perfectly still in the main seat of Prince Jing's reception hall, my gaze drifting to the red plum tree beneath the corridor eaves. A few petals had been torn loose by the bitter wind, scattered across the flagstones like carelessly spilled rouge, as if the woman kneeling before me with her tea offering were no concern of mine whatsoever. Shen Wanru wore a pink embroidered gown, her knees pressed against the ice-cold golden bricks. Her hands trembled as she held aloft a gilt-rimmed tea bowl. The liquid sloshed, sending droplets onto the pale skin of her hands, leaving faint watermarks in their wake. She stole a glance at me, her voice soft as cotton wool. "Elder sister, this humble younger sister has just entered the household and comes to offer you tea. May elder sister and his highness enjoy perfect harmony in marriage." The servants in the hall kept their heads bowed, scarcely daring to breathe. Steward Qin Zhong stood to one side, his eyes darting between Shen Wanru and myself, though he dared not utter a word. Behind me came a thunderous Lam Murongji's palm striking the Eight Immortals table. He wore a dark blue brocade robe, his hair bound with a jade coronet, his brow furrowed with rage. He rose abruptly and strode towards me, his voice sharp as a blade. "Yi Qingluan, how dare you? Wanru offers tea as proper etiquette demands, yet you pretend not to see. Do you truly think Prince Jing's residence is your father, the Prime Minister's back garden, where you may do as you please?" His rebuke set the candle flames flickering. Shen Wanru seized the moment to lower her head, her shoulders quivering slightly as though she had suffered some tremendous grievance, yet the corner of her eye tilted upward, watching for my reaction. I remained motionless. I merely withdrew my gaze from the plum blossoms, swept it coolly over her theatrical performance, then let it settle on Murongju's flushed face. Just as his hand rose to strike my face, a flurry of urgent footsteps sounded from beyond the gate, followed by a resounding crash as someone forced the doors open from outside. My father, Ye Chengzong, swept in wearing his purple ministerial robes, clutching a bright yellow Imperial scroll. Two guards flanked him as he strode forward. Frost clung to the white hair at his temples. Clearly he had rushed here without pause. His breath came unevenly, yet his voice rang out clear and strong. "Imperial Edict. Prince Jing Morongjue and Ye Qingluan received the decree." Morongju's hand froze mid-air, his face draining of color. He spun around to stare at the yellow scroll in my father's hands, his lips moving soundlessly. Shen Wanru was so startled she forgot to maintain her wounded expression. Her grip loosened, and the tea bowl crashed to the floor with a clatter. Porcelain shards scattered everywhere, tea soaking through her embroidered slippers. I rose unhurriedly, smoothed the slate blue gold-threaded jacket I wore, and took my place beside my father. Father unfurled the scroll, his voice resonant, each word carrying clearly through the hall. "By heaven's mandate, the Emperor decrees Prince Jing Murongjae has favored his concubine whilst neglecting his wife, conducting himself in a manner contrary to propriety and moral order. Permission is hereby granted for Yi Qingluan to dissolve her marriage to Murongju. All dowry properties belonging to the Yi household, whether movable or immovable, shall be returned in full to Yi Qingluan. None in Prince Jing's residence shall obstruct this in any measure. Those who disobey shall be charged with defying an imperial decree, so it is commanded." As the final word fell, the entire hall descended into absolute silence. Even the crackling of the candles could be heard with perfect clarity. Murongju staggered back 2 paces, colliding with the Eight Immortals table behind him. Porcelain vases toppled and shattered across the surface. He pointed at my father, his voice trembling. "Father-in-law, this cannot be. How could His Majesty issue such a decree?" Father rolled up the scroll and cast him a cold glance. "Your Highness, this edict was written in His Majesty's own hand and bears the Imperial seal. How dare you question it, Qingluan? Let us proceed to the study to verify the dowry inventory. Today, every last item belonging to the Yi household shall be removed." I acknowledged him and turned towards the study. As I passed Murongji, he reached out to grasp my sleeve. I stepped aside to avoid him. His hand hung empty in the air, his face a portrait of disbelief and indignation. Shen Wanru had collapsed onto the floor, watching my retreating figure with eyes full of venom, yet she dared not make a sound. The study lay to the west of the main hall. its carved beams and painted rafters lined with bookshelves full of ancient texts, all covered in a thin layer of dust. I had Fuan spread the dowry inventory across the enormous pearwood desk. The inventory had been compiled by my father's own hand before my marriage, each item marked in vermilion ink with its name, quantity, and identifying marks. The documents formed 3 thick stacks. I traced my finger down the first page, which read, 1 pair of dragon and phoenix jade discs, imperially bestowed, 12 pieces of red sandalwood furniture, 1,000 ching of prime farmland located in Shunyi County on the outskirts of the capital. Murongju followed us in and seized the edge of the inventory, yanking it downward. Qingluan. Once these items entered Prince Jing's residence, they became the household's common property. You cannot simply take them back. Those 1,000 ching of farmland, I've already mortgaged them to cover the residence's debts. They cannot be recovered. His grip was fierce, crumpling the paper's edge. Fuan stepped forward and pressed down on his hand. Your Highness, please conduct yourself with dignity. The Imperial Edict clearly states that all dowry items are to be returned in full. If you obstruct this, you will be defying the throne, and defiance of an Imperial decree is punishable by execution. Murongju flung off Fuan's hand and was about to erupt when footsteps sounded outside the study door. Master Wei from the Ministry of Revenue entered in his official robes, bearing a token inscribed with the characters for Ministry of Revenue. 2 subordinate officials accompanied him. Your Highness, Miss Yi, His Majesty has commanded this official to oversee the verification of the dowry. Should there be any concealment or obstruction, I am authorized to report immediately to the court, and the matter shall be treated as defiance of an imperial decree. Master Wei approached the desk, picked up the inventory, then produced a ledger from his sleeve and consulted it. He looked up at Murongju, Your Highness. Miss Yi's dowry includes a pair of dragon and phoenix jade discs bearing the inscription, imperially bestowed in the 2nd year of Tianxi, as well as a white jade ruyi scepter, a tribute item from the western regions. Where might these be at present? Murongju's eyes shifted evasively as he stammered. The jade discs are in the treasury, the ruyi. The ruyi was unfortunately lost. Lost. I raised an eyebrow and glanced towards Shen Wanru, who stood at the study doorway, furtively tucking something into her sleeve. I caught Fuan's eye. Fuan understood at once, striding over to Shen Wanru and reaching for her sleeve. Shen Wanru shrieked and tried to dodge, but Fuan had already seized her wrist. A white jade ruyi scepter tumbled from her sleeve, the characters Yi household, Qingluan, clearly engraved on its handle. Concubine Shen, this ruyi is part of my Yi household's dowry. How did it come to be in your sleeve? I walked over, retrieved the jade scepter, my tone even but carrying an unmistakable authority. Shen Wanru dropped to her knees with a thud. Spare me, elder sister. It was His Highness who gave it to me. I was foolish and thought to hide it. Murongju's face cycled through shades of red and white as he pointed at Shen Wanru and cursed. You wretched woman, spouting such nonsense. Master Wei let out a cold laugh and produced the Imperial Edict from his robes. Your Highness, caught red-handed with the evidence before us, do you still wish to deny it? Men, go to the treasury and verify the jade discs, then send someone to Shunyi County to investigate the mortgage status of those 1,000 ching of farmland. If the claims prove true, recover them immediately. 2 subordinate officials departed at once. Before long, they returned with the dragon and phoenix jade discs from the treasury, along with news. The 1,000 ching of farmland had been privately mortgaged by Murongju to a salt merchant without proper registration at the Ministry of Revenue, rendering the mortgage invalid. Murongju watched as each dowry item was logged by Fuan and the ministry officials. He watched as Master Wei produced the divorce documents and compelled him to sign and affix his seal. His fists clenched so tightly his nails nearly broke the skin. In the end, he signed his name on the documents and pressed his thumbprint. Strategic commentary, ladies and gentlemen. This is a textbook case of exploiting systemic vulnerabilities. Murongju believed marriage was a one-sided resource extraction scheme, forgetting one fatal detail. Qingluan's father was the Prime Minister, and her dowry inventory had long been registered with the Ministry of Revenue. His unauthorized mortgage of the farmland, His tolerance of his concubine pilfering imperially bestowed treasures every step dug his grave deeper. All Yichingluan had to do was illuminate each pit at the opportune moment. The spring has been compressed to its limit. Now comes the rebound. With the dowry verification complete, the hour had reached mid-afternoon. Fuan arranged 20 carriages to transport the items piece by piece. I boarded the lead carriage. The curtain fell, shutting out everything connected to Prince Jing's residence. The carriage rolled away from the residence, proceeding along Vermilion Bird Avenue towards the Prime Minister's mansion. The wheels rumbled over the flagstones. As we reached the alley junction midway along the avenue, the carriage lurched to a sudden halt. A thunderous crash followed. A boulder the size of a millstone had rolled from a rooftop at the alley's entrance, blocking our path. Fuan's voice came from outside, sharp with alarm. "My lady, take care." I lifted the side curtain to see over a dozen masked figures pouring from both sides of the alley. Each wielded a long blade, their faces concealed by cloth, only their murderous eyes visible. Without a word, they charged at the carriage. A blade slashed through the curtain, tearing it wide open in an instant. Fuan leapt from his horse, sword drawn, positioning himself before the carriage to engage the assassins. His swordsmanship was formidable. He wounded 2 attackers in quick succession, but they outnumbered him badly, gradually encircling him. One assassin circled behind Fuan and swung at his arm. Fuan couldn't dodge in time. The blade carved a long gash, blood immediately soaking his sleeve crimson. "Fuan." I called out sharply, reaching for the dagger I kept for protection, when the thunder of hooves suddenly erupted from the alley entrance. Zhang Heng, the capital magistrate, arrived in his crimson official robes at the head of several dozen constables, bellowing, "Halt! How dare you commit murder in broad daylight? Seize them all." The constables surged forward with their staffs, surrounding the assassins. Seeing the tide turn against them, the attackers attempted to break through but found themselves blocked at every turn. One assassin was kicked to the ground by Zhang Heng himself, and the constables immediately pinned him down. The man jerked his head up, black blood trickling from his lips. He had bitten through a poison capsule hidden in his teeth and died on the spot. I descended from the carriage and approached the assassin's corpse. Kneeling, I pulled away his mask to reveal an unfamiliar face. I then searched his waist and retrieved a bronze token. The token bore 5 characters: Prince Jing's residence guard. Zhang Heng came over as well. Upon seeing the token, his expression shifted dramatically. This is a token from Prince Jing's residence. Could these assassins have been sent by the prince? I pocketed the token and rose, gazing towards Prince Jing's residence, my eyes betraying not a flicker of emotion. "Magistrate Zhang, I must trouble you to investigate this matter thoroughly. I shall present this token to His Majesty. I trust he will see that justice is done." Zhang Heng bowed. "Rest assured, Miss Yi, I shall pursue this to the very end and show no leniency." Fuan was helped aside by the constables to have his wound dressed. I instructed him to return to the Prime Minister's mansion first, then ordered the driver to clear the boulder. The carriage continued on its way. Inside the carriage, I turned the bronze token over in my hands. Murong Jie had actually hired assassins to prevent me from reclaiming my dowry. Such ruthlessness truly chilled the blood. Upon returning to the Prime Minister's mansion, the setting sun had already painted half the sky crimson. Red lanterns hung at the gates, and servants had long been waiting. Seeing my return, they bowed in greeting. Father came forward to meet me. Seeing me safe, he breathed a sigh of relief. "Qingluan, thank heavens you are unharmed. I've had a welcome banquet prepared in the main hall." The Prime Minister's main hall was even more spacious than Prince Jing's. The 8 immortals' table was laden with dishes: bird's nest soup, braised bear paw, steamed perch, all my favorites. I took the seat of honor while Fuan stood at my side, quietly informing Father of the alley ambush. Father's expression darkened immediately. He was about to speak when footsteps sounded at the door. The third prince, Xiao Yu, entered in his bright yellow brocade robe, a jade belt at his waist. His pace unhurried. "Prime Minister Yi Qingluan, I've arrived uninvited. I hope you'll forgive the intrusion." Xiao Yu wore a smile as he approached the table and took a seat, his gaze settling on me with evident concern. I heard Qingluan dissolved her marriage to Prince Jing today. I've come especially to offer my congratulations on escaping that sea of bitterness. I inclined my head slightly. My thanks to your highness. The banquet had barely begun when a commotion erupted at the gates. Moments later, a woman in plain cotton dress, though sporting a gold hairpin, burst into the hall. It was Wang Shi, Shen Wanru's cousin. She planted her hands on her hips and stood in the center of the hall, pointing at me as she shrieked, "Yi Qingluan, you venomous woman, relying on your status as the Prime Minister's daughter, you've grown arrogant beyond measure. You drove out my cousin and forced Prince Jing into divorce. Have you no conscience?" Her voice was shrill enough to pierce eardrums. The servants tried to restrain her, but she shoved them aside. Xiao Yu's brow furrowed. He rose and thundered, "Insolence! This is the Prime Minister's residence. How dare you make a scene here, guards? Remove her." But Wang Shi showed no fear, craning her neck defiantly. "Your Highness, don't be deceived by this poisonous woman. My cousin Wanru is gentle and virtuous. Since entering the household, she has endured everything with patience. It is Yi Qingluan who is jealous. She gave my cousin nothing but cold looks and made difficulties at every turn. Prince Jing had no choice but to show Wanru favor." "Oh," Xiao Yu raised an eyebrow and stepped towards Wang Shi, his gaze turning to ice. "You say Wanru endured everything with patience. Then let me ask you, last month on the 15th, did Wanru not secretly divert Qingluan's dowry funds to purchase farmland for her own family? And the week before last, did Wanru not wear Qingluan's phoenix coronet and ceremonial robes while hosting guests in the residence gardens? How should such presumption be punished?" Wang Shi stammered, unable to form a response. I drew the bronze token from my sleeve and placed it on the table with a sharp clack. The sound was not loud, yet it silenced Wang Shi instantly. I regarded her steadily. "Wang Shi, you accuse me of driving out Shen Wanru and forcing Murong-Jie into divorce. Then perhaps you can explain, why did Murong-Jie send assassins to intercept and kill me on Vermilion Bird Avenue? This token is the evidence." Wang Shi stared at the token on the table. Her face ashen, she spun around to flee, but her foot slipped, and she crashed into a nearby wine table. Bottles and dishes clattered to the floor, soup and wine splashing all over her, leaving her in utter disarray. She didn't bother to wipe herself clean, but scrambled out of the Prime Minister's mansion on hands and knees, drawing roars of laughter from the onlookers gathered outside. Xiao Yu watched her retreating figure and shook his head, resuming his seat. "Murong-Jie is truly vicious. You cannot simply let this matter rest." I raised my wine cup, took a sip, and replied evenly, "Naturally not. What he owes me, I shall reclaim bit by bit." Early the following morning, I proceeded to Prince Jing's accounting office, accompanied by Master Chen from the Ministry of Justice. The accounting office occupied a separate courtyard on the eastern side of the residence, shaded by several scholar trees. The chief accountant, Sunday Mao, sat behind his desk. Upon seeing us enter, he leapt to his feet and spread his arms to block the bookshelves. "Miss Yi, Master Chen, this is Prince Jing's accounting office, containing confidential household records. You have no authority to intrude." Master Chen produced the Emperor's personal mandate from his robes and unfurled it. "Sunday Mao, His Majesty has decreed that this official and Miss Yi are to conduct a thorough audit of Prince Jing's accounts. Anyone who obstructs us shall be charged as an accomplice." Sunday Mao's expression flickered, but he still refused to move. "Without His Highness's orders, no one may conduct an audit." Fuan stepped forward, gripped Sunday Mao's shoulder, and pushed him aside. "Master Sunday, don't make this harder on yourself." I approached the desk and surveyed the mountain of ledgers piled upon it. I picked one up and leafed through it. The entries recorded routine household expenses, the handwriting neat and orderly, nothing apparently amiss. Master Chen also examined several ledgers, his frown deepening. "These are all the official accounts. The hidden books must be elsewhere." My gaze swept the room, finally settling on the bookshelf in the corner. The shelves were crammed with ancient texts, but one row was arranged with conspicuous precision, quite unlike the disorder of the others. I walked over and pulled out the volume of the Analerta positioned at the center. The bookshelf emitted a soft click, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay 2 thick ledgers. I retrieved them and opened the first. The pages were filled with entries in black ink, the handwriting entirely different from the official accounts. One page read, "Embezzled 50,000 taels of silver from the National Treasury for renovation of the residence gardens." Another page read, "Borrowed 200,000 taels from salt merchants, secured against farmland in the capital suburbs, at 3% monthly interest." Sunday Mao's face drained of colour when he saw the compartment exposed. He lunged forward, trying to snatch the ledgers. "You mustn't look. Put those down." Master Chen had anticipated this. He ordered the constables to seize Sunday Mao and pin him to the ground. They produced chains and shackled his wrists. Sunday Mao struggled, crying out, "His Highness will save me. His Highness will surely save me." I secured the ledgers and looked down at Sunday Mao, sprawled on the floor. "Sunday Mao, you conspired with Mirongji to falsify accounts and embezzle treasury funds. That alone warrants death. Even if Mirongji wished to save you, he could not." Master Chen nodded and addressed the constables. "Take Sunday Mao to the Ministry of Justice prison for rigorous interrogation. Extract every last detail." The constables complied, dragging Sunday Mao away. Master Chen and I searched the accounting office further, uncovering several mortgage documents signed between Mirongju and the salt merchants, as well as correspondence with various officials detailing bribes Mirongji had received. Only after collecting everything did we depart from Prince Jing's residence. Over the following days, I occupied myself organizing the recovered dowry while having Fuan discreetly investigate Shen Wanru's origins. One afternoon, I brought Fuan to the Drunken Immortal Tower, the grandest restaurant in the capital, and reserved a private room on the top floor. The proprietor, Li Ju, was an old acquaintance of my father's. Seeing me arrive, he hurried over with a bow. "Miss Yi, welcome. Your private room is ready." I followed Li Ju upstairs. The room was elegantly appointed, with a round table by the window bearing a pot of Longjing tea and 2 cups. On seated, I addressed Li Ju. "Proprietor Li, the matter I asked you to investigate, have you found anything?" Li Ju nodded and stepped out. Shortly, he returned leading a disheveled scholar in tattered blue robes, his hair streaked with grey. The scholar clutched a cloth bundle, his hands trembling, not daring to meet my eyes. "Miss Yi, this is Lin Laoshuan. According to him, he is Shen Wanru's birth father." Li Ju made the introduction. I gestured for Fuan to bring a chair for Lin Laoshuan. "Lin Laoshuan, you claim to be Shen Wanru's birth father. What proof do you have?" Lin Laoshuan opened the bundle with shaking hands and withdrew a small silver locket. The locket was engraved with the character 1, accompanied by a yellowed paper bearing a birth date and time. He handed me the locket and the birth record, his voice hoarse. "Miss Yi, I had this locket made for her years ago. The birth record shows her exact date and hour of birth. She is my illegitimate daughter with widow Wang from next door. When she was 3, people from the Shen household took her away, claiming they would adopt her. Only later did I learn the truth. The Shen family wanted to use her to curry favor with Prince Jing, so they lied and called her their legitimate daughter." I examined the locket carefully. Its style was somewhat old-fashioned, the character 1 crudely carved, yet it bore an unmistakable authenticity. The date on the birth record matched precisely with the one registered when Shen Wanru entered the residence. At that moment, the door to the private room was kicked open. Shen Wanru swept in wearing fine garments, accompanied by several residence guards. The instant she spotted Lin Laoshuan, her face contorted with fury. She raised her hand to strike him. "You old wretch, how dare you spread such lies here? I'll beat you to death." Lin Laoshuan cowered, shrinking into himself. Fuan stepped forward and caught Shen Wanru's wrist. "Concubine Shen, restrain yourself." The commotion drew guests from downstairs who crowded at the doorway, pointing and whispering at Shen Wanru. Shen Wanru glanced at the onlookers, her face alternating between red and white. She wanted to lash out but feared losing face. Li Ju stepped forward, producing a red document from his sleeve. "Concubine Shen, there is no need to rush to violence. Here is something else you might wish to see." He handed it to me. I looked it over. It was a contract of indenture from a pleasure house. Reading, Shen Wanru, also known as Lin Wanru, is hereby sold to the drunken immortal tower for a term of 3 years, for the sum of 50 taels. The document bore Shen Wanru's thumbprint and the signature of the tower's former proprietor, dated 5 years prior. Shen Wanru, not only are you illegitimate, you once worked as an entertainer at the drunken immortal tower. To attach yourself to Prince Jing, you lied about being the Shen family's legitimate daughter. Such deception have you no shame. I held the contract high so all the onlookers could see. The crowd erupted in a frenzy of whispers. So concubine Shen is illegitimate and worked in a pleasure house. Prince Jing was thoroughly deceived. Poor Miss Yi, married to such a man, then schemed against by such a woman. Hearing the crowd's commentary, Shen Wanru's legs gave way. She crumpled to the floor, covering her face and sobbing, but no one pitied her now. I gathered the locket, birth record, and contract, thanked Li Ju, and departed the drunken immortal tower with Fuan. The murmuring voices and Shen Wanru's weeping faded behind us. Several days later, I had barely risen when a commotion reached my ears from beyond the mansion gates. Fuan hurried in. My lady Murong-ju is kneeling outside the gates, requesting an audience. I ascended to the gatehouse tower and looked down. There was Murong-ju, stripped of his princely robes, clad in plain cotton garments, kneeling before the Prime Minister's gates. His forehead had been pressed to the flagstones so many times it was mottled with bruises, his face streaked with tears. Behind him stood several resident servants bearing betrothal gifts, though none dared approach. Yiqingluan, I know I was wrong. Murong-ju heard footsteps and raised his head towards me on the tower. His voice raw. I should never have trusted Shen Wanru, should never have withheld your dowry, and certainly should never have sent assassins after you. Come back, I'll dismiss Shen Wanru immediately and make you my only princess. For the rest of my days, I'll treat no one but you with devotion. The crowd of onlookers swelled, surrounding the mansion gates, pointing and commenting. Several threw rotten vegetables and eggs at him, shouting, "You faithless wretch! Where was this remorse before? Miss Yi would never go back to you." I stood on the tower wrapped in a white fox fur cloak, my gaze cold as I regarded him. I turned to the guard Zhou Qing beside me. "Bring out the evidence." Zhou Qing complied, retrieving a stack of scrolls from behind him. He walked to the tower's edge and unfurled them one by one, hanging them over the railing for all to see. The scrolls displayed copies of the ledgers documenting Murong-ju's embezzlement of treasury funds, the mortgage documents with the salt merchants' rubbings of the assassin's token, and the evidence of Shen Wanru's true origins along with her pleasure house contract, every piece irrefutable. "Murong-ju, look at these." I pointed to the scrolls, my voice clear, carrying across the entire street. "You embezzled treasury funds to cover the residence's debts. You secretly mortgaged my dowry farmland to line your own pockets. You sent assassins to waylay and murder me. The Shen Wanru you doted upon is illegitimate, and once worked in a pleasure house. You were completely taken in by her, yet you mistreated me instead. What right have you to ask me to return?" I leaned forward, drew the Imperial divorce decree from my sleeve, and flung it down. The scroll traced an arc through the air before landing on the flagstones before Murong-ju. The bright yellow silk was stained with mud, yet remained glaringly conspicuous. "Murong-ju, you are not worthy." Those 4 words fell, and the crowd erupted in cheers and thunderous applause. Murong-ju stared at the decree on the ground, then up at me on the tower. His face was ghastly, his body swaying before he finally collapsed, ashen and utterly defeated, unable to utter another word. I turned and descended from the tower without a backward glance. Zhou Qing had the scrolls collected, and the mansion gates slowly closed, shutting out everything beyond. Strategic commentary. Murong-ju believed that kneeling at the gates was lowering himself. What he failed to grasp was that this very act exposed his final weakness. He still harbored the delusion that emotional manipulation could salvage the situation. And Yiqingluan, she chose public execution. From this day forward, his every step in the capital would be accompanied by fingers pointing at his spine. 3 days later, in the Golden Hall, civil and military officials stood arrayed on either side. I knelt at the foot of the Imperial dais, all evidence in hand, with Master Chen and Zhang Heng standing behind me. The Emperor sat upon the dragon throne, his expression dark, listening as I enumerated Murong-ju's crimes one by one. "Your Majesty," Murong-J embezzled 150,000 taels from the national treasury, accepted 80,000 taels in bribes, dispatched assassins to murder your subject's daughter, and deceived your majesty by falsely claiming Shen Wanru was the legitimate daughter of the Shen household. His crimes warrant death. I presented the evidence piece by piece, which the eunuchs conveyed to the emperor. The emperor reviewed the evidence, then turned his gaze to Murong-Ji, who stood in the center of the hall. Murong-Ji wore prisoner's garb, his hair disheveled, all trace of his former dignity vanished. He threw himself to the ground, kowtowing frantically, "Your Majesty, your subject is innocent. This evidence was fabricated by Yi Qingluan to frame me, framed." The Imperial censor Lu Song stepped forward, memorial tablet in hand, and declared in a ringing voice, "Your Majesty, I have a report to submit. Murong-Ji has not only engaged in corruption and bribery, but has also been in secret communication with the Northern DI plotting rebellion. I have here his correspondence with the Northern D as proof." Lu Song presented the letters. The emperor read them and flew into a towering rage, hurling the letters to the floor. Murong-Ji, such audacity, colluding with foreign enemies to betray the nation. Murong-Ji was so terrified his soul seemed to flee his body. He kowtowed until his forehead bled, yet could not produce a single word in his defense. "Zhang Heng," the emperor turned to the magistrate standing to one side. "As capital magistrate, have you verified that Murong-Ji dispatched assassins to murder Yi Qingluan?" Zhang Heng bowed. "Your Majesty, I have verified it. The assassins were indeed sent by Murong-Ji. The one who took his own life was confirmed as a guard from Prince Jing's residence, and 2 other assassins have been captured and have confessed in full." The emperor's fury was boundless. He struck the armrest of the dragon throne and thundered, "Hear my decree, strip Murong-Ji of his title as Prince Jing, confiscate all residents' properties, cast him into the heavenly prison, and execute him on a date to be determined." Shen Wanru deceived the imperial family and conspired with Murong-Ji to falsify accounts. She is sentenced to exile in Ninguta, never to return to the capital. The guards stepped forward and dragged Murong-Ji away. His wailing echoed through the Golden Hall, yet no one showed him sympathy. I rose slowly and bowed to the emperor. "Your subject thanks your majesty for delivering justice." The emperor regarded me and nodded. "Yi Qingluan, though you have suffered misfortune, you maintained your integrity and exposed Murong-Ji's crimes, rendering service to the court. I shall instruct the Ministry of Revenue to recover every item of your misappropriated dowry and restore what is rightfully yours." I expressed my gratitude once more, then turned and walked out of the Golden Hall. Sunlight fell upon my shoulders, yet carried not a trace of warmth. Several days later, I brought a food basket to the capital's main prison. The prison was dark and damp, the air thick with the smell of mold and blood. The head jailer, Wanru, led me through iron door after iron door until we reached Shen Wanru's cell. Shen Wanru wore prisoner's garb, her hair hanging loose and tangled, her face smeared with grime. She huddled in a pile of straw, all trace of her former prettiness long vanished. Hearing footsteps, she raised her head. Upon seeing me, her eyes instantly filled with venom. She lunged at the cell bars, gripping the iron rails as she shrieked, "Yi Qingluan, it is you! You destroyed everything I had. I'll kill you." I stood outside the cell, observing her wretched state, and spoke evenly. "You destroyed yourself. Had you not been consumed by vanity, had you not conspired with Murong-Ji, you would never have come to this end." "I didn't." Shen Wanru shook her head frantically. "It was Murong-Ji who promised to make me his princess. You stood in my way, that is why I did what I did." Just then, a maidservant in coarse cotton dress approached from nearby. It was Chuling, Shen Wanru's personal attendant. Chuling held a letter in her hands. She walked up to me and dropped to her knees with a thud, weeping, "Miss Yi, I've wronged you terribly. It was Shen Wanru who ordered me to poison your tea and to frame you for having an affair with a residence guard. This is the secret letter she wrote to me. It bears her handwriting and her thumbprint. Please spare me." Chuling offered me the letter. I took it and examined it. The handwriting was indeed Shen Wanru's, detailing her instructions for Chuling to administer poison and fabricate accusations against me. At the bottom was her thumbprint. Wanru also stepped forward, handing me a confession document. Miss Yi, this is Shen Wanru's confession regarding her conspiracy with Sunday Mao to falsify the account ledgers. Sunday Mao has already confessed. His signature and thumbprint are here. I secured both the letter and the confession, then addressed Wanru. I shall deliver these to the Ministry of Justice for proper handling according to the law. Shen Wanru stared at Chuling and Wanru, her eyes filled with disbelief. She slumped to the ground, murmuring, "Even you have betrayed me, even you." I did not look at her again. I turned and left the prison. Several days later, the Ministry of Justice issued its verdict. Shen Wanru was sentenced to exile in Ninguta. On the day the prisoner's cart departed the capital, I stood atop the city wall, watching it gradually disappear into the distance. It was said that when the cart reached the moat outside the city, Shen Wanru seized a moment when the guards were distracted and threw herself against the city wall, dying instantly, thus ending her brief and absurd life. In the blink of an eye, late spring arrived. In the rear garden of the Prime Minister's mansion, the red plum blossoms had long since faded, replaced by a courtyard full of peonies blooming in magnificent purples and brilliant reds. I sat in the pavilion, gazing at the peonies before me, a book in my hands that I had not truly been reading. Footsteps sounded behind me. Xiao Yu approached in his brocade robes, carrying a red lacquered wooden box. He walked up to me and knelt on one knee. Opening the box, inside lay a phoenix coronet, with ceremonial robes spread beside it. The coronet was studded with pearls and precious gems, glittering magnificently. "Qingluan." Xiao Yu looked up at me, his gaze sincere. "I know you have just been through a divorce, and perhaps have no wish to marry into the Imperial family again. But I still want to tell you, I have admired you for a long time. In this life, I wish to marry no one but you. If you become my wife, I shall protect you completely and never allow you to suffer the slightest grievance again. This phoenix coronet and these ceremonial robes were bestowed by His Majesty at my request. I hope you will consent to marry me." I looked into his earnest eyes, then at the phoenix coronet, and felt my heart stir. Yet I still shook my head. "Your Highness, I have only just left Prince Jing's residence. I have long since lost all faith in imperial marriages. I fear I cannot accept." Xiao Yu did not rise. He remained kneeling, taking my hand in his. "Qingluan, I am not Murongju. I will never favor a concubine over my wife, nor will I ever let you suffer. I am willing to swear upon my status as a prince. In this lifetime, you alone shall be my wife. Should I break this oath, may heaven and earth strike me down." At that moment, the Empress arrived in her phoenix robes, accompanied by the palace matron Rong Momo, carrying a bright yellow imperial scroll. The Empress wore a smile as she spoke. "Qingluan, His Majesty has decreed that you shall be betrothed to the third prince, with the wedding to take place on an auspicious date. This marriage has His Majesty's personal blessing and carries my own wishes as well. Do you say yes?" Rong Momo stepped forward, unfurled the scroll, and proclaimed in a clear voice, "By heaven's mandate, the Emperor decrees Yi Qingluan is intelligent and virtuous, of excellent character and bearing. She is hereby betrothed to the third Prince Xiao Yu as his princess consort. The wedding shall take place on the 6th day of the 5th month, so it is commanded." I looked at the Empress, then at Xiao Yu still kneeling before me. Father had also entered from beyond the pavilion. He nodded at me, his eyes full of encouragement and warmth. I took a deep breath, reached out, and accepted the phoenix coronet from Xiao Yu's hands. "Your Highness, I accept." Xiao Yu's face lit up with joy. He rose and embraced me tightly, his voice trembling slightly. "Qingluan, I swear I shall never disappoint you." The Empress smiled and nodded. "Wonderful, Rong Momo. Make the arrangements. The wedding preparations must be flawless." Rong Momo bowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." The 6th day of the 5th month arrived swiftly. The third prince's residence was adorned with red silk and coloured lanterns. Double happiness characters hung everywhere, and the sound of drums and music filled the air. I sat before the bronze mirror in the bridal chamber as the palace maids applied my makeup. The phoenix coronet rested upon my head, its pearls and gems catching the candlelight with dazzling brilliance. Fuan stood to one side, his eyes reddened. "My lady, you have finally found happiness. This old servant is truly overjoyed." I smiled faintly. "Fuan, you have followed me through all these hardships. From now on, life will only get better." At that moment, the sound of firecrackers erupted outside. followed by the matchmaker's voice. The auspicious hour has arrived, the bride shall proceed. 2 palace maids helped me rise. I lifted the hem of my ceremonial robes and walked out of the chamber. Xiao Yu stood at the entrance in his crimson wedding robes, a red silk ball pinned to his chest. Upon seeing me emerge, his eyes shone with undisguised adoration. He stepped forward and took my hand. "Qingluan, you are breathtaking." I lowered my head slightly, feeling warmth spread across my cheeks. The wedding procession made its way through the main gates. Red carpet stretched from the entrance to the ceremonial hall, lined on both sides with guests offering congratulations. Father stood among the guests, his eyes glistening with tears he struggled to contain. The Empress sat in the seat of honor, nodding with satisfaction as she watched us approach. In the ceremonial hall, the Master of Ceremonies called out in a resonant voice, "First bow to heaven and earth." Xiao Yu and I turned to face the altar and bowed deeply. Second bow to the parents. We turned to face the Empress and bowed again. Husband and wife bow to each other. Xiao Yu lifted my red veil. Our eyes met, and in that moment the world seemed to fall away. The ceremony is complete. Escort the bride to the bridal chamber. Cheers erupted from the guests. Xiao Yu took my hand and led me towards the bridal chamber, his grip warm and steady. That night the bridal chamber was filled with the soft glow of dragon and phoenix candles. Xiao Yu dismissed the servants and sat beside me on the bed, his expression gentle yet serious. "Qingluan, there is something I must tell you." I looked at him. "What is it?" He produced a scroll from his sleeve and handed it to me. "This arrived today from the heavenly prison. Murong Zhou's execution has been carried out. His crimes were too numerous: embezzlement, bribery, collusion with foreign enemies, attempted murder. The Emperor showed no mercy." I unrolled the scroll. It was the official execution record, bearing the Ministry of Justice's seal. I read it in silence, then rolled it up again. "He brought this upon himself." Xiao Yu nodded. "Indeed, and there is more news. The Shen family has been stripped of their official positions and exiled to the border regions. They will never return to the capital." I set the scroll aside and looked out the window at the moonlight filtering through the lattice. "It is finally over." Xiao Yu took my hand. "Yes, it is over. From now on, you need never look back. I will ensure that no one ever harms you again." I turned to face him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "Your Highness, call me by my name," he interrupted gently. "We are husband and wife now." I paused, then smiled. "Xiao Yu," he smiled back, and in that smile I saw the promise of a future I had once thought impossible. Spring had returned once more to the capital. In the gardens of the third prince's residence, now the crown prince's eastern palace, pannies bloomed in profusion. I sat in the pavilion, watching a small figure toddle across the garden path. Our son, Xiao Chen, had just turned 2. He had his father's eyes and my stubbornness. Xiao Yu approached from behind, wrapping his arms around me. "What are you thinking about?" "Nothing in particular," I replied. "Just remembering." "What?" I leaned back against him, remembering how I once thought my life was over. How I believed I would never escape that prison of a marriage. He tightened his embrace. And now, I watched our son stumble and pick himself up again, laughing as he chased a butterfly. And now I know that endings are merely beginnings in disguise. Fuan appeared at the garden entrance, his hair now completely white but his step still steady. He bowed. "Your Highnesses, the Prime Minister has arrived for the family banquet." I rose, smoothing my robes. Xiao Yu offered me his arm. As we walked towards the main hall, I caught sight of my reflection in a garden pond. A woman in fine robes, a phoenix hairpin in her hair, her eyes clear and untroubled. She looked nothing like the pale, hollow-eyed bride who had once knelt in Prince Jing's residence, enduring humiliation in silence. That woman had died the day she chose to fight back, and from her ashes I had risen. Final strategic commentary. When she finally moved, every piece was in place. Ministry of Justice's cooperation. He saw only a neglected wife, not the strategist who was methodically dismantling his world. The greatest victories are won before the battle even begins. Ye Qingluan understood this truth, and that is why she won.